Greetings and salutations. You're listening to Mama Rue's Ancestral Musings. This is a podcast about all things blackness with an ancestral point of view. How is everybody doing? I'm doing mighty fine. It's a wonderful, wonderful morning here in Chicago, despite all the foolishness and fuckery going on in other parts of the world, including my city. Hey, things are groovy. As long as we are protecting ourselves, watching our environments, and taking extra precautions, okay? Because we are in the midst of a global pandemic, okay? With this COVID-19, aka coronavirus. So please, yeah. If you were a hand washer before, my goodness. Okay, now is an opportunity for you to get totally OCD with that shit and can't nobody say nothing. Okay? Yes. I want to talk about something that it has been going on for a little while, but it seems to be amping up a bit. Yeah. So I was watching this YouTube blogger who does celebrity news, and she has a very, very large following, Black woman. And I noticed on one of her recent videos, she was talking about somebody else who is linked to Jay-Z, and she was basically saying, well, since Beyoncé is a witch, and it's Beyonce's witchcraft that allowed Jay-Z to be, the superpower in the music industry that he is. And she kept repeating this over and over. Beyonce's witchcraft. Beyonce is a witch. Beyonce, that witchcraft that she and Jay-Z. And I've seen the rhetoric, ever since, or even before Beyonce came out with that Lemonade album. People were saying things. And why is it, y'all? Why is it that when people do things and become really successful, it has to be tied to something negative and nefarious and dark and evil and demonic? Okay? Like, what the fuck is that about? It's like, but at the same time, the same people that perpetuate that bullshit are constantly talking about going after the bag themselves. They're constantly talking about getting that money, getting that, it's just really weird. And the fact that this country in particular, being as, the capitalistic superpower that it is, nobody ever really wants to go into why that is. Okay, so we're just going to break it all the way down. Okay, let's break up all that bullshit. So a lot of this stupidity and ignorant rhetoric that is being just tossed out into the universe, we can now have a frame of reference based in facts, history, and common sense. All right, so let's start with the quote, Beyoncé is a witch. Beyoncé is a Black American woman. From what I understand, her maternal lineage is from New Orleans, okay, Creole, all right? And what's so interesting about just the state of Louisiana in and of itself, since it was started by the French, okay, and the Spanish as well, we're talking about Catholic people. All right. So the Africans who were enslaved in Louisiana by default had to become Catholic. Okay. They had to be baptized and become Catholic. As long as they went to Mass, they were, pretty much left alone. What they did outside of Mass, nobody really cared. Okay. Some people did and some people didn't, but that's a topic for another day. Okay. They really started to give a fuck when the Haitian Revolution popped off and other rebellions, of Africans, banding together to get their freedom. Then they kind of they put their foot on their neck a little bit. Okay. Such as the banning of drums played in Congo Square, for example. But the state of Illinois, and particularly New Orleans, has a rich history of African spiritual practices, okay? A rich history. And most times what you'll see if you study the history on slave rebellions, okay, whether they be just African people or Africans who joined with the native indigenous people to rebel against the white people, what you will find is a commonality of them using their indigenous spiritual traditions. Why? Because melanated people all over the damn planet do that. They don't divorce themselves from spirit. They don't divorce themselves from the world around them, aka nature. Everything has a spirit. Okay, just like indigenous native people will pray to the spirit of the animals that they hunt, and when they actually strike down an animal, they will then cover it in prayers of gratitude and thanks. They will thank that animal for sustaining their lives, for feeding their family, for giving them warm things to wear when it's cold. Okay. Melanated people all over the planet move in this way. The only people who tend to not are the Europeans. Okay. So when they go and take over other groups of people, put them in bondage, enslave them and whatever, they do what they can to eradicate all traces of indigenous practices that are spiritual based practices that deal with bonds and communications and relationships and reverence of the spirits around them, the spirits of nature, of plant life, of animal life, the spirits of the natural forces, earth, wind, fire, air, and so on. Okay, so when we look at the African traditions as practiced in the diaspora, that meaning where our ancestors were enslaved in the New World, all right, not just here in the United States, but the Caribbean, South America, and Central America. Okay, what we will see are varying degrees of autonomy and freedom of expression that most of us Black folks here, our ancestors did not have the same freedom. Protestant religion played a huge role in that. Okay, a huge role. Does that mean that we lost our spiritual traditions, unlike people, elsewhere in the diaspora, or people of Louisiana, who were, dealing with the French and the Spanish and all like that? No. Okay. Not at all. Hence hoodoo, right? Which is predominantly practiced by Protestant leaning Black American people. Okay. So once you have all of this and you understand that Protestant slaveholders didn't consider their enslaved Africans human beings. They didn't look at them as like, oh, they have a soul that needs salvation. There was an edict that came from England, okay, back when the colonies were forming and they just started bringing Africans over here to be slaves. There was an edict that said you must baptize and Christianize your slave. That was an order. Okay, because the white folks who were over here did not want to do it. They didn't, because they saw Africans as subhuman, without soul. They didn't want to sully their idea of their, powerful white God in the minds, hearts, and hands of people that they did not believe were worthy of it. Okay, so that wasn't a deed. That was an order that was passed down. If you study the history of Virginia, where all this shit started, okay, Jamestown and all like that, you will find what I'm saying to be factual, okay? Now, white folks did have an understanding of African beliefs, traditions, and culture, okay? There have been several white men, American white men, and European white men that have been on the continent of Africa since the 1400s, studying African people and their ways so they could better go in and divorce them from it. They can't snatch something from you without an understanding of what it is they're snatching. Also, they want to be able to safeguard themselves. So they made it their business to learn as much as they could about the people that they were in turn going to subjugate, primarily with their religion. Okay? So, knowing what they know, one of the things that colored their perception about African traditions, okay, is that the shit was powerful as fuck. And it was something for them to fear. So yes, they had to do away with every single instance of Africanity as shown by the new workforce, okay? Their new workforce. They had to make sure that nobody was doing none of that African shit because they knew it had the power to decimate them, to free them, okay? And so they did really cruel, vile, inhumane things to our ancestors to put fear in the hearts and the minds of all the other enslaved so that they would be like, look, you want to live, you want your children to live, you want your parents to live, you want, your loved one to live. This is what's going to happen to you if you don't do away with that African stuff. Okay? And they were very brutal about it. They were very unapologetic about it. No remorse. Okay? The brutality is such that it doesn't even resonate with our humanity. It's something inhuman altogether. You got to be something totally inhuman to be able to do any living thing the way they did our African ancestors over here. Okay? And their propaganda worked. Okay? Now, they didn't eradicate everything. Okay? But they did a pretty damn good job at putting fear into the hearts of Africans, and then that full Christian indoctrination started to, take over. Basically, it infected a lot of our people, okay? Because there's some straight up pathology going on. Now, disclaimer, I was raised Christian, okay? I was raised Christian, and the teachings that I got about Christ are not even visible in what our oppressors say is Christianity. So let me just make that very fucking clear, okay? There is a distinct difference. I don't know what their God is, but they're using this, wonderful socialist revolutionary man as their poster boy for their religion, okay? And I'm willing to say, if Jesus came back today, he would have a problem with that hugely. All right. But anyway, I digress. Yeah. So during the 21st century, a lot of Black folks are starting to wake up. It started with the question, who did our ancestors pray to before they became slaves? Okay. And it was a great question because it's a very important one. All right. It's very, very important. So it is allowing people to open themselves up to some real shit that they've never really thought about before. And that's how our ancestors move. Okay. They inspire us to open ourselves up to truth. They inspire us to connect the dots. They inspire us to try to make sense out of things that really just don't make good sense. And that's Urugu in a nutshell. It really doesn't. Okay. It just flies smack in the face of everything that the majority of the people of this world believe in. All right. So now we've got all these people moving toward, Christianity obviously isn't serving us well. So let's look and explore at things that are more in alignment with who we are, because we know we're different. We know we walk different, okay, metaphorically speaking and literally. So it's like, what is it that moves us? What is it that keeps getting us over? Because it doesn't really feel like it's the white sky daddy, that is on our money, the one that we're supposed to say we trust in, that's on our money. Okay. It doesn't really feel comfortable with that. All right. And so people start opening themselves up for the truth. And that's where the ancestors ignite them with the information, however the information comes, whether it comes to them directly or they see something out in the world that resonates with them on a deep level. Okay, when something resonates with you in your core, then that means that's your ancestors guiding you. All right? They're guiding you. Now, going back to the Lemonade album. All right. When Beyoncé did the Lemonade video, the film project, I was just doing cartwheels. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of Beyoncé as an entertainer. that doesn't take away from anything that she does. I don't hate her like a lot of people hate her. They don't even know this woman. She's a black woman. I'm not going to sit up there and just my knee-jerk reaction to you is going to be hateful because of who you are or how you speak or, whatever the case may be. This has nothing to do with anything other than her being a black woman with a huge, huge reach, huge audience. Okay. And so there were spiritual elements woven all through that just really made me happy. Okay. Just the visuals just really made me happy. Yeah, there's a lot of, concern over intellectual property and, doing things that other artists have done, you know what I'm saying, and her taking the creative license. And I'm not going to get into all that. If you're interested in all that, just look, Google it because it's out there for everybody to see. But it just really resonated with me and it made me happy because I'm like, okay, with someone of her stature, putting this stuff out there, it's going to resonate with me like it's going to resonate with other people too. And sure enough, I go on the internet and I'm seeing all these people talking about Oshun, one of the Yoruba Orishas. Okay. I found out that her husband, Usher, and I think her mom, either all together at the same time or at different points, have traveled to Cuba. This is allegedly, they were initiated into Osha or Lukumi. Okay. And I say this allegedly. I have seen people that I respect who are priests in tradition to confirm certain aspects of it, but I'm not here, to put that out there. I'm just here to just very generally say what I know. And I'm going to put allegedly on there. Okay, but not unlike many others have done before them. Okay, the Black American people that I know who are in Orisha tradition, a few of them that I know personally, they've been involved since the late 70s and early 80s. Okay, and so everybody under their tutelage has initiated as well. And then in the 90s and 2000s, a lot of these Black Americans went to West Africa, particularly Nigeria, to get their Isese initiations or initiations into Ifa or to other Orisha with the Nigerian traditional practice of Orisha tradition, because they have been exposed to the diaspora version of it. So now they're going to the continent to get the continental version of it, just to cover all their bases. Okay, so this isn't anything new to Jay-Z or Usher or anybody else in the public arena. And since we're talking about celebrities, I happen to know the priest who initiated Forrest Whitaker. He is now Babalawo, okay, of the Kumi tradition. So you know what I'm saying? There's a really long list, guys. There's a long list of people who are in the public eye who are a part of the ATRs for their religion or spiritual practice. Okay, so, Google it and look it up. It's out there for everybody to see. Some of the names won't surprise you. And maybe there might be some that might, who knows? But anyway, this isn't new to Jay-Z and Beyonce. Now, because a lot of people outside of African traditional religions or African diaspora religions or African spirituality in general look at it from a Christian Yurugu lens, they automatically fall in line with the oppressor and say, oh, that's that witchcraft. Our people have been doing this for decades. Many of you have to deal with this in your own lives. You want to honor your ancestors. You got some Christian relative or friend standing behind you going, oh, that's witchcraft. Oh, that's witchcraft. Listen, when the colonizers went to Africa and saw what our ancestors, people were doing, honoring their ancestors, revering the dead, revering the spirit forces of nature and the divine God and all like that, they immediately said witchcraft and made it something bad, made it something evil. Why? Because they're trying to do a whole psych out game with these people to Christianize them. So how are they going to get them to accept their religion if they point out all the good, wonderful, powerful things about what they're already doing? They can't do that. So they have to demonize African ways, y'all. Just like they demonize our physical features. Just like they demonize our intellect. Just like they demonize everything else about us. They have to demonize our ancestors' traditions, okay? Because they want them to accept Christianity because their holy book, the Bible, has certain language within it about slaves. And they want them to consider themselves as such. So now they can keep them in bondage and maybe, get some good slaves out of it all. All right. So what we've seen happen since, the slave trade is that other people in other areas of the diaspora tend to have more success with retention than Black folks in America did. All right. Even the practice of hoodoo, it wasn't easy to hide it behind saints because the majority of us, like I said earlier, came from Protestant enslavers. So there are no iconography, statues, and things like that to hide all these spirit forces behind or into. Okay. So what our hoodoo people had to do was do like everybody else and go and take our tradition inside of the church. All right. So that's where things kind of fall apart. A lot of Christians to this day will practice hoodoo and claim that it isn't hoodoo. They just call it the Lord's work because they do the semantical kind of game playing for themselves so they can rest easy at night. All right. But it doesn't matter what you call it. It's still African, baby. It's still African tradition. Oh, what? So what? You're a church-going Christian. Oh, you got saved. All right. But you're still going to eat collard greens and black-eyed peas on New Year's, aren't you? You're still going to have watch night, aren't you? You're still going to put a plate out for those you lost during the previous year, aren't you? You're still going to have first footing, aren't you? That means you're not going to let a woman be the first person to enter your front door on New Year's Day. Okay? You're still not going to be doing laundry on New Year's Day. You still gonna look at a damn horseshoe over the door, back door, front door, don't matter, and know what that means. You still ain't gonna split a damn pole, okay? You still know that anointing with oil has some very powerful after effects associated with it, okay? I taught an oil class for the Walking to the Kin group, and I totally broke down the link or the tie between our thing with oils and hoodoo practice and our African ancestors and what they did in their healing and spiritual practices on the continent of Africa and West Africa and West Central Africa. Okay. So people, will try to revise history. They'll try to say a thing isn't really a thing just so they can appease. But we just have to look at the root of how that all started. It all started as a campaign of fear to put fear in the hearts and minds of Black people so that they could be subdued better, so they could be controlled better, so they could be better slaves. You understand? I hope you guys understand. If you understand it at this point, very good. If anything I just said to this point confuses you, then just rewind it and listen carefully at it again. Okay? So, white people force Christianity. Okay? And if you beat and break a person down long enough, you can get them to do or say anything to the point where now they do it with autonomy, meaning you don't have to punish them. Now they'll just do it out of their own recognizance. They'll do it themselves. All right. And so that's what Black people have been doing for a very, 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 very long time now. Okay. They self-police spirituality and practices amongst their own because that scared slave shit. It's just, man, here we are in 2020 and we still have slave mentality. And the best way to see it is through Christianity. That whole, I forgive my enemies. I'm going to forgive the person what did this to me and my family, because they want to be good Christians and they want to get into heaven because that's, they've been indoctrinated like that. Okay? And everything is the devil. Thank you, Jamal Bryant. Pastor Jamal Bryant. Oh, my goodness. He just made a statement that burning incense is witchcraft. That's not the first time I heard that. When I met my husband and we started dating, his Christian family said the same thing about me. Okay? They found out I read tarot cards. That's demonic. They saw the frankincense that I was burning. That's demonic. And I just had to laugh like, oh, you think baby Jesus mama would have said it was demonic? Did baby Jesus mama throw the damn kings out the tent when they came to bring him frankincense and myrrh, bitch? Really? But there's a lot of ignorance too, okay? A lot of ignorance surrounding our more religious church-going folk, okay? Not to say that all Christians are ignorant. I'm just speaking from my experience. They tend to be, the less logical of us, the less reasonable, the less interested in due diligence, facts, research, evidence-based, whatever. Okay. All right. That's just an observation, y'all. That's just an observation. So when Pastor Jamal Bryant came out and said that shit, I just had to laugh. Never mind the fact that, his old lady, his baby mama is, New Orleans Creole and probably practices voodoo. Or her people probably practice voodoo in her bloodline. I don't know. But I just thought it was cute. It was funny. And even more hilarious was this one post I saw by this black woman speaking out against the owner of Honey Pot. Now, in case you didn't know, Target decided to do a little feature on a black woman business owner, who the creator and founder of Honey Pot Feminine products. And they did it in honor of Black History Month and Women's History Month. Okay. And so they basically highlighted her and spoke on the importance of visibility. And so, everything she did was to inspire other little black girls, because visibility is a thing for black folks. Okay. We need to see things, talking about it, telling us about it. Yeah. But we need to see something to really believe in something. Okay. And there was a lot of black backlash. Okay. White folks just got so butthurt because she was centering black women and girls, or rather Target was. So they decided to go on this whole hate campaign against this lady and, boycotting her stuff. Oh my God, don't buy it. She's racist. Never mind. This was Target's thing. Okay. It wasn't no boycott Target. It was boycott the black woman. All right. And we as the community, we push back. And now Honey Pot products are sold out everywhere. In an interview that the owner did with someone, she gave, a shout out to the ancestors. She made mention of the fact that she is a practitioner of Lukumi tradition, okay, which is the African diaspora tradition of Orisha worship as done in Cuba. Okay, ever since the first slave was brought to Cuba, they brought with them their traditions. Now, I do believe Palo Mayombe was first. Don't quote me on that. I think the Congos were brought first, and they had that's how Palo evolved from the Congo Bantu people. And then a little later in the slave trade, they brought the Yoruba people, and they brought Orisha practice to Cuba. Okay. So anyway, since she gave, reference and kudos to her practices and beliefs, this Black Christian woman on Facebook wrote this whole essay about Honey Pot products being demonic. And she even threw in, for good measure, you wearing your weave is also demonic because, the women who get their head shaved in India, for example, it's a spiritual ritual involved. So anything outside of, Christianity, as far as ritual and spirit and religion and is seen by these narrow-minded po babies. These po babies, Lord have mercy, it's seen as something evil and demonic. And it just really makes you question, well, how powerful is their God if everything is such a danger or a threat to them spiritually? Okay. They look at everything and say, oh, it's honoring ancestors is demonic. Burning incense is demonic. This is demonic. I mean, I've been hearing that for over 30 years from my in-laws. Everything I do is demonic. Okay. Everything. And what's so interesting is they don't even study demonology. It's like they don't even know what's involved to deal with those types of entities and essences and beings. They don't have a fucking clue. If it was that goddamn easy, oh my God, how powerful could I be right now? If it was that easy, how rich could I be right now? If it was that fucking easy. This is not giving power to demons, because I really don't. Okay, I really fucking don't. Not to say that they don't exist, but people tend to put too much power on the things that they are not aware of or have learned or studied about. Okay, that's the whole fear mongering. It's like their whole power, their personal power is fear mongering, because I see that taking precedence over actually doing good shit. What they say, doing good work for the community. That's how I measure a church. Like, how involved are you? Your church is here. So the community surrounding your church needs to be fucking thriving. It doesn't matter if they're members or not. Okay? That's something I learned from my father when he used to be an AME pastor when I was a child. Okay. His church was like right on the border of a really poor community and a more well-heeled community. Okay. And so he wanted to do things for the poor side. He wanted to start a literacy program, and all the bougie black folks in the church were like, no, we don't, our money is going to be for the anniversary banquet. We don't want to put money into, no, they're not even members of our church. You see, and my father thought that he was acting in accordance with the Jesus Christ that he was always talking about in Sunday service. But that congregation was like, nope, we ain't having that shit. Okay. So yeah, he wanted the community around the church to thrive, whether they were members or not. And that just really spoke to me. It really did. Okay, so everybody can rant and rave how well-dressed the church leaders are, and how fancy their cars are, and how beautiful their spouses are, and how lovely their McMansions are. But if the communities around them are fucked, or there's blight, there's desolate, there's no thriving businesses, the families' homes are going into foreclosure, it's empty lots everywhere, ain't no black businesses thriving, your church is a fucking scam. Okay? That's how I see it. So they don't really have a leg to stand on when they try to clap back at people who are waking up to the truth about who they are and who they belong to. The people who are seeing that the religion of my oppressor is not serving me or my people well. And why is it that they try so hard to get rid of it? That's what these Christians need to really be focusing on. They need to really understand, what was it? Because I guess in their indoctrinated, Stockholm syndrome brain, the white people just loved us so much. They cared enough about our souls to get salvation. They cared enough about us to go to heaven. They cared enough. No. How could the people who cared about you in that way bring so much evil into your lives? The fucking Ku Klux Klan is a white Christian organization. Y'all's God is the same. So how could the God of a terrorist group that wants to eradicate us be your God? Okay, how the fuck does that work? Okay, at some point you're gonna have to give up the motherfucking ghost and start to see the truth about some things. And the truth is gonna hurt a lot of people. It's hurting a lot of people. Pastors with mega churches. Why? Because they ain't gonna get that money. They got mortgages to pay. Okay, they got side pieces they need to take care of. Oh yeah. All right. And they want to talk about, burning candles and burning incense is a fucking demonic ritual. I'm going to need all Christians and everybody else who might be curious and interested to look at Leviticus 4. Go open up your King James Bible and read Leviticus 4. Okay? Read that shit. 4th Leviticus. Read it. And talk to me about some ritual. Talk to me about some burnt offerings. Talk to me about some ritual animal sacrifice. Talk to me about the blood. All right? They forever pleading the blood of Jesus. He was the ultimate fucking sacrifice. He was a human sacrifice. All right? Human. But then they try to justify it. But yeah, he sacrificed his life for us to be free. He sacrificed his life. Bitch, he was murdered. Okay? He was murdered. You understand the difference? But let's go ahead. He's committed suicide for us. All right, let's just go ahead and say that. That's a human sacrifice. So why is his human sacrifice? Why is God sacrificing his anointed son so that you could have salvation in heaven? Why isn't that also seen when an African priest sacrifices a bull, a ram, a chicken, a goat, so that his tribe, his people, his community, his family can be safe from disease and illness, so that they can be protected by the people who are their enemies, they do war with? Okay? How is that not the same? Okay? The idea, the sentiment behind the whole ritual in the first place. All right? It's not that African people are just so savage that they're just out here willy-nilly, sacrificing animals and doing blood rituals because they can. No, it has to be mandated by God and the spirits first. All right? You don't take it upon yourself to do these rituals. Just like the people in the Bible didn't take it upon themselves to do those blood sacrifices and those blood sacrificial rituals. Okay? So a lot of people say, oh, well, Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice, so he died, so we didn't have to do all those blood sacrifices. Okay, that's a good way of looking at it. Okay? But you're still eating meat. you're still eating the result of a blood ritual sacrifice, baby. All right? You're still seeing black people, men, women, and children, elders being slaughtered, their blood feeding this land. Okay? Because they stopped going after the red man the way that they went after us. There's still a God entity, spirit, whatever you want to call it, that's being fed human blood every fucking day. Our blood. Okay? What are you doing about that? What does your Jesus do about that? Okay? No, you just pray for your enemies and ask for, you tell them you're going to forgive them. That's what they want you to do because you're still a slave. So those of us who are just, we made a conscious decision. We ain't going to be slaves no more. Fuck that shit. All right. We free in body, but we're going to be free in the spirit, and we're going to be free in the mind. We're going to be free in the heart. We're going to be completely free. And complete freedom means what? Doing away with Urugu. It's Urugu what got us enslaved. The pathology of Urugu is what keeps you in line, black people. So the white people can stay safe and in comfort. They don't have to live in fucking fear. All right? But black people returning to African spiritual traditions and religions, it's inspiring fear in the average white person. Now, the smart white person was like, well, let me get in on this shit. Shit. Black folks is turning up with the African shit. I need to get my ass in there. And that's probably why you see so many white folks clamoring to get in African traditions. That's why you see them doing what they're doing with our beloved hoodoo, y'all. Okay? And these silly ass black people falling for the motherfucking okie doke, trying to keep other black people from their inherent truth and power. All that's doing is making you a fucking better slave. Okay? So for black folks that are cool with being, enslaved, y'all go ahead. But the rest of us, leave us alone. Just stay out of our way. Okay? Because we're moving on the path that our ancestors put us to. They said, it's time for y'all to come home. It's time for you to come home to the truth about who you are, about the truth of what's flowing through your veins, about the truth of your personal power that Urugu took away from you. He brainwashed you into thinking that you weren't shit. He brainwashed you into thinking you didn't have no tie to your ancestors. He brainwashed you into thinking that all the things that we've ever done was evil and demonic. And we're here to tell you, daughters, sons, the truth is here. Let it move you. Let it wash over you. Let it instill within you. Let it cover you. Let it empower you and protect you Let it help you manifest your desires. Let it help you manifest your dreams. Let it help you get that bag. Let it keep you protected from illness. Let it keep you protected from injury and harm. Let it keep you protected from our common enemy. Let it keep the claws and tentacles of Urugu far, far, far away from you, your families, and your community. We can't have Black power without our Black African spiritual power. We can't have anything until we do away with all Urugu thinking. And what is that? That's called decolonization. Decolonizing the mind. And people are doing it in different ways. Some ways are better than others. It doesn't matter what path you take. We're all going to the same place. And that place is full, complete, total liberation. And that's all I have to share with you today. You can follow me on social media. I have a channel on YouTube, Mama Ru. Check it out. All podcast episodes are there. Okay, look at the playlist. That's where I tend to keep all the episodes of Mama Ru's Ancestral Musings podcast. You can also follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram and on Tumblr. All right. So as always, I'm going to love you and leave you, but I'm going to wish you love, peace, and powerful juju. Take care, everybody.